Hey, what's up, everybody? Time for another game theory video. Remember, if you like the videos, like, some silly comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. Today, I want to talk about a little bit more and elaborate more on that mid-level player, like I was talking last video, right? I want to also kind of talk about a potential, I think, victim complex of the mid-level player that always lets them feel like they've won, and I want to relate this to more broader topics as well. And hopefully you'll be able to see in all this sort of rambling, maybe just a speckle or a kernel of truth to what I'm talking about that might give you a different perspective on video games and life in general, I guess, perhaps. So at first glance, this picture might seem crazy to you. 3 Pikachus, something that's definitely not a cock. It's a pee-pee. It's not a pee-pee Pikachu. Oh, fuck. And what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase, but we're going to make this make sense, sort of, right? So generally speaking, like I've said, the smaller portions of this not picture of a pee-pee right here is most people fall into this, bottom, or most people fall into the mid-range, right? But there's that, smaller range of, some people are complete scrub-dubs, right? Not very good players, right? And then that top portion is the, theoretical 10, you know what I mean? Maybe you got like the 8, 9, 10. 8's a good player, 9's a good player, really good player, 10 is the theoretical, whatever you don't get to, right? But we're trying to get a better grasp of the situation of this mid-level player, right? Trying to get a better handle on the situation. Oh, fuck, man. Jesus. You're checking out the FGC on NBC now. Well, it's not a pee-pee. It's a pee-pee. Oh, fuck. Fuck me. Anyway, for some reason, it's hard to take video games seriously a lot, so I don't know why it makes me laugh. It's a pee-pee. So trying to get a better grasp on this middle situation, right? Because most people probably fall into this quasi-bad range, you know what I mean? Quasi-good range. The mid-level range is potentially pretty vast, I think, right? You might have one attribute, you might have a little bit of little baby attributes, right? But it's kind of like an RPG or like a sport game, right? You got your reaction time, you got your execution, you got your knowledge of the game, There's just so many different variables, your adaptability, your versatility, right? And something I didn't even mention, last video, of course, is there's also that idea for sure that sometimes, there's that different levels of, like, I guess people say yomi, whatever the fuck it is, I guess, if you want to pretend that you're Japanese or some shit. Like different levels of mind game. Like maybe the top level player for some reason like that, and this is what I talk about too, actually, if you think about, I talk about this mid-level range is often that range of a lot of autopilot and a lot of bullying, right? But those players also can get bullied themselves and autopiloted very much themselves, right? But for sure too, and not that this can never happen at the top level, so to speak, of top player versus top player. Sometimes there's this idea of if you are at that top level, let's say a higher level, or someone a similar level to you, maybe even, that there's that idea of there's a bit of respect and you respect this person can do or has this sort of knowledge, right? So you might play versus them a little bit more safe. But sometimes this mid-level player, they can get wins versus a topper level player, let's say, because they don't have the same respect, perhaps, for the top level player, let's say, because they only have one attribute as well. Maybe that makes them even more inclined to go for that autopilot stuff, right? But then once the top player, so to speak, or the better player, once the tip realizes what is the problem, the shaft's problem, you know what I mean? Then they can get bullied because they know they're not that good. An example would be, and this isn't to talk shit or something like that, but, let's say, God, and people, I'm sure, because so many haters will probably say that I'm like trying to talk shit or something like that. Say Alpha 1. You can go watch the matches. I'm not going to say who it was, but there's a guy that's good in Alpha 1. I've played him. And he has actually lost to, I've seen him lose to quasi good players that I've absolutely just to be honest, I just fucking toy with. But, I've seen him lose to some quasi good players, let's say. And, after the match, I saw he was complaining. He's like, oh, it was really laggy and blah, blah, blah. And he was whatever. And, you know, fair play, you know, I mean, it is online, and I'm not going to say it wasn't lagging versus him. It's sort of, I played video games and it's lagged for me. So I believe that. But the point is, I've actually seen this guy lose sets to quasi good people, right? And where I've played these quasi good people, and I can tell personally when I've seen them play that this guy is a quasi good player. He is a autopilot player, and he's just doing like, this thing is good in this game, and this will win. This will like let me win more than I will lose, right? And the way that he plays is a play style of not respecting, so to speak. And again, this is very kind of ambiguous, right? It's kind of, 'cause sometimes video games are a feel, and I don't want to go over matches, but I noticed when he played, you know, this guy that I'm talking about, he played him without respect. And sometimes that can fuck you up, right? I would assume if they were to play more sets that this person I'm talking about would beat him, because he actually has the versatility and the knowledge to adapt. But this lesser player was just autopiloting and bullying him. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to respect you, blah, blah, blah. But so that's actually a perspective that I forgot to talk about, because whenever I played this guy, if you've seen our matches, I mean, I literally just do stupid shit and toy with the guy, and I just let him beat himself. You know what I mean? Because I can tell he's not actually truthfully that skillful to be able to adapt. Again, kind of ambiguous. And, you know, if you know the matches I'm talking about, you can go watch, whatever. You know, but those things, hopefully, I'm being vague, you can tell what I'm talking about, hopefully. I'm trying to be vague because people say, oh, you're talking shit or some shit, right? But again, this mid-level player is the range of the bully, the autopilot, but because they're not truthfully skillful and all these different things, they can be bullied. They can be autopilot. Of course, they can like get up to a little bit higher, and sometimes they can get wins versus those topper players, because sometimes maybe they don't show the top player quotation marks respect, which is a whole nother topic, because for sure there is an idea that even when you get to let's say a higher level, sometimes you need to not respect your opponent, because you got to make them, you know, hey, I can play a little bit random too, right? You know what I mean? You can't give your opponent too much respect. You know, certainly I've played people and I've given them a little bit too much respect before. So that can happen even at similar levels, right? But kind of a different topic, but I forgot to mention that the last video. But something I wanted to talk about this video too, and why I have the what's good for the goose is the good for the gander, is I want you to think about this mid-level player too, right? And I use this example of Alpha 2 that, and you don't even have to use Alpha 2, but we can use Alpha 2 in custom combos. But let's think about any game that has a tactic that is very, let's say, powerful for what it is, right? When we were talking about this execution stuff and, you know, oh, execution isn't a part of, you know, Street Fighter 6 now, right? And there's that weird comment like, oh, I'm so glad we don't have to worry about executing people because, you know, the fact that you could out-execute someone in Street Fighter 4 was a problem, which is fucking retarded, right? Which is one of the reasons I made that video. But we could actually say, and this is what I'm talking about, almost like a victim complex and people wanting a excuse for if they lose. Let's say we have this mid-level player, right? We have this mid-level player here. Now, let's say that the game we're talking about has a, let's say, you know, a tactic that can bully you. It can bully you at any level, from the bottom level to the top level, right? From the bottom level to the top level bottom level to the top level, there's a tactic, there's a something in the video game. Maybe it's a custom combo. Maybe it's Street Fighter 6. How often do you see people complain about, oh, the drive rush is just too powerful. Slimy, what the fuck is this, Slimer? I fucking came up with it, I forgot. Slimer rush, right? Slimer. It's called drive rush, right? Slimer drive rush. Drive impact on side. I just call it fucking green shit. Slimer. You know, the point is, very powerful for what it is. They have big influences on the match because, you know, I've talked about it in game theory. You know, these video games are almost, the mechanics are now more important than the characters, right? But think about it from the perspective, if you have a mechanic in the game that is so important that it is now more important than the characters, so to speak, because the technique, whatever it is, it's universal. It's forever embedded in how the game is played, right? So again, to use the example of like Alpha 2, custom combos matter at any level. Any level custom combos matter, right? You know, just they're a threat at any level, right? At any level of the shaft, right? So I think, and this is why I want to talk about what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and maybe think about this from a victim complex and always thinking you're the best. You can have this mid-level player who they're just almost to the tip, right? Or maybe they're not even almost to the tip. They have so much whatever stat attribute they have. But if they have custom combos, they have that they might be able to get wins from a top player. But as well, because of that, they can also say like, oh, well, I got custom comboed, so I don't really feel like I lost. Or, oh, hey, I'm Drive Impact, and I'm so good at Street Fighter 6. Drive Impact, I forgot the name already. Drive Rush, right? What the fuck is it called? Slimer, green, I'm just calling Slimer. Let me just go by what the fuck I fucking called it. Oh, he's just doing so much fucking Slimer, and it's so hard to check, whatever. You know what I mean? So it's almost like, you know, the pot calling the kettle black. Pot calling the kettle black. What's good for the goose is the gander. You know what I mean? It gives like this middle player, especially, this sort of like out no matter what they do. They can say that they're skillful because they can get wins versus better players than them. And if they lose, they're like, oh, well, I just got slimered. Oh, I won, my Slimers were on point. Oh, well, I lost it, I got Slimered. Oh, I custom combo, my great custom combo, I was so skillful. Oh, well, I only lost that match because I got custom comboed. Do you see you see that kind of perspective that I'm trying to get at? Some of these games and that's why I wanted to relate this to almost like a sort of game theory video and not just a psychological player, although I got this is kind of like psychological because maybe it's the mindset of the player. But you know, maybe sometimes players actually like having these bad games and these, let's say, quotation marks, broken things because it gives you an excuse. On one hand, you can feel good about yourself, but on the other hand, you're like, oh, I can give myself an excuse if I lost. You know, it's like a coping mechanism. These games are some of these things in video games are so badly designed, it's almost giving you a coping mechanism. It makes it, you always feel like, oh, I'm just at the cusp of being good. Does that make sense? There's something, again, Alpha 2. Custom combos. Wow, so skillful. I hate supers and super turbo. They're too strong. But I like Alpha 2. Oh, I don't like how you can't block supers in Alpha 1 because they're fast. Oh, I like custom combos in Alpha 2. You know what I mean? It like gives you an excuse that you can always feel like you're on the cusp of being a great player or a good player. Because you can have I have so many attributes that actually won't let me reach the tip. But then there's this extra gameplay element that lets me get to the tip. Sometimes I win, sometimes I get the bust, and sometimes I lose. But even if I don't get the bust, I can just say that I lost to this tactic because it's bullshit. Like, did you see that one fucking idiot talking about how great Alpha 2 was on my comments? Oh, Alpha 2 is a great game. We all know that custom combos aren't good, though. What the fuck, motherfucker? What the fuck? Now you don't like custom combos? I thought you liked them, you fucking idiot. Yeah, fucking retarded, dude. Like I said, I feel like I draw these stupid pictures, and even while I'm drawing these stupid pictures, like I feel like people can't argue with me. It's ridiculous, but anyway, that's kind of a little bit of a weird way to think about this. Hopefully you got what I'm talking about. Again, it's a silly picture thinking about this in a deep way. Remember, if you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. The end.